Good morning or good afternoon. Today we'll be recording a video on Quizzette 712. As always, write your last name, comma, first name, today's date, and circle your class color. Number 1 are IXL exercises, 7th grade, L2 and L3. I believe this Quizzette is full of IXL exercises, so if you have your own account, you can easily practice these questions and know if you're right or if you are wrong, because it gives you instant feedback. Okay, so number 1 says, how do you write 15/20ths as a percentage and a decimal? So the way I write 15/20ths as a percentage is I divide 15 by 20. Remember, when you have a fraction bar, it also looks like the division symbol. You always have to divide. So 15 divided by 20. 20 goes into 15 0 times. There's my decimal, which is what I need also. Now 20 goes into 150, let me see, 20, 40, 60, 80, 100, 120, 140. So that's 7 times, which is 140. 150 minus 140 is 10. Let's bring down one more 0. 20 fits evenly into 100, and I'm going to write it in blue. It fits into it 5 times. So the decimal of 15/20ths is 0.75. And the percentage is actually very easy. Once you have the decimal, you just have to shift the decimal 2 places to the right, and that's 75%. Okay, so here's my percentage, and here's my decimal. It says, the second question says, which sign makes the statement true? 0.5 is either less than, greater than, or equal to 20%. The way you can do this is you can turn this percentage into a decimal to compare them, but I would prefer to compare them in percentages because the whole unit is on percentages. So this 0.5, I'm going to turn that into a percentage. So 0.5, you just look at the place value that 5 is in. 5 is in the tenths place. So I would write 0.5 as a fraction, and that's 5 over 10. 5 over 10. You can also reduce that to 1/2. I actually did more work than we needed. You can easily convert the decimal into a percentage just by shifting it. So we have 0.5. Just shift it 2 places to the right and put the percentage symbol. If you have an empty space, put a 0. So it's 50%. Another way, this is just reinforcing that it's 50%. Half of 10 is 5. Half of 2 is 1. So clearly these are all 50%. Those are all equivalent to 50%. So 50% is blank to 20%. 50% is clearly greater than 20%. So it's greater than 20%. Number 2, 95% of 80. In order to find this without using a calculator, we have to know how to convert our percentages into decimals. All right, so I already taught you, if you have a percentage, you just get a decimal place and move it 2 places to the left. So that's 0.95 of 80. You multiply those, and that tells you what 95% of 80 is. All right, so if we want to find the percentage of a number, of a quantity, we just multiply the decimal version of the percentage by the original number, and that tells us what 95% of 80 is. You can also use it, you can also do mental math if the percentages are nice and if the amounts are nice. But if you had like 81.55, you probably don't want to do the mental math on that. You probably want to write something down. So for this case, I'm just going to multiply just for the sake of proving that it works. 0 times 5 is 0. 8 times 5 is 40. I'll put a place value or placeholder. 0 times 9 is 0. 8 times 9 is 72. Add those quantities together. And then I went 2 decimal places. And that's pretty reasonable. 95% of 80 is 76. That's reasonable. You don't have to put the check. I just put that there out of habit. Okay, now let's find what 60% of 95 is. We can do this using mental math. We'll just try it. So what I like to do is I like to find what 10% is of every number. 10% of 95 is 9.5. And then I could think, okay, 10% times 6 is 60. So I could just multiply 9.5 times 6, and that'll get me 60% of 95. So I can multiply this by 6, and that'll get me the 60%. Another thing you can do is just 95 times 0.6, because that's the decimal. So 60% is equivalent to 0.60. That's also equivalent to just 0.6. So I'm going to multiply 95 times 0.6. And then 9 times 6 is 54, plus 3 is 57. I went one decimal place. So 60% of 95 is 57. Now let's try it the other way that I taught you during doing mental math. 5 times 6 is 30. 9 times 6 is 54, plus 3 is 57. I went one decimal place. Lo and behold, I get the same answer, 57. So 60% of 95 is 57. I'm sorry this is so messy. I didn't plan on it being this messy. But we can also write it on the side. 60% of 95 is 57. 57. Some of you guys learned this differently. If your way works, by all means, use the way that works for you. I just want to make sure that you do it right and that you know how to get the answer and it produces the right answer every time. Number 3 says the lunch choices last Friday were mushroom or pepperoni pizza. All right, so the lunch choices last Friday were mushroom or pepperoni pizza. The cafeteria made 28 mushroom pizzas and 7 pepperoni pizzas. What percentage of pizzas were mushroom pizzas? So first of all, we have to take into account how many pizzas we have in total. So 28 plus 7, we know is 35. So that's how many we have in total. Later on this week, we are going to take notes on percents. So right now, I'm not going to give you the formula, but I'm going to tell you that the ratio of mushroom pizzas to the total number of pizzas is 28 to 35. And if we want to find what percentage the mushroom pizzas are in terms of the total amount of pizzas, we would divide 28 by 35. Now for this, you would probably use a calculator. And I have a calculator next to me, so I'm going to go ahead and use that. 35 goes into 28 0 times, I know that. 35 actually goes in evenly into 280, and 35 goes into 280 8 times. So some of you might be tricked into believing that 8% of mushroom pizzas account for the amount of pizzas there, but it's not. That's in the tens place. So you know that that's not 8%, that's 80%. And this is how, I'm going to write it in blue. So when we're converting a decimal into a percentage, you move it 2 places to the right. And then you put a percentage symbol on it. So this would be 80%. So then we would write in a sentence, if you can squeeze it in there. What percentage of pizzas were mushroom pizzas? 80% of the pizzas were mushroom pizzas. Okay. As always, make sure you raise your hand if you have a question. And good luck on this Quizzette. Equivalent to, oops, I'm sorry.